Hello everyone and welcome to today's lesson for Scratch for Beginners, or our Coding for Kids course, Creative Coding. And today's lesson is going to be all about art projects. Today we're going to be learning how to draw. And that means we're going to take a look at some coordinates, moving Scratch and drawing shapes. We'll also be using the pen tab today. We're looking at using variables later on, and we used variables in the last lesson a little bit. So today we're going to have a better understanding of how they work. And of course, we're going to be making our pattern generator, which will make lovely different spiral shapes and will be lots of fun to do as well. So the first thing we should probably look at is what happens when we're drawing in Scratch. Well, some instructions are too big for the computer. That means if we tell the computer to just simply draw a square, the computer kind of looks at us and goes, what? And that's why we break them down into simple blocks so that the computer will be able to understand. So if you have a look on Scratch, you can see that there are blocks in the pen tab called set pen size to 2, so you can set what size of a pen you want. So if you can imagine you have a normal size pen and a giant marker, and that's what the pen size block does. It tells you which size of the block you want to use. And then when you put the pen down on the page, it starts to draw. So then what we have to do is tell the sprite to start moving with it. So we tell it to move 100 steps and maybe turn 90 degrees. What shape do you think we'll make if we start doing that? If we maybe repeat it by 4? How many times is it going to, what shape is it going to make if it moves 100 steps, turns around, moves another 100 steps and turns around again? And some of you guys are answering the question. You've got square, diamond. Some people are saying circle, but you're very good. I like the diamond answer. That's a very interesting one. And everyone else is saying square as well, or a rhombus as well. That's brilliant. So if we break down these blocks into simple tasks and then tell the computer how to do it, it'll be able to follow us along. So let's have a look at doing that in Scratch now. So here's a look quickly just before we begin at our studio as well. Guys, we have over 100 projects in the studio already. So last time we did the course last month, we had a maximum of 250 projects. And I can tell already by the standard you guys have put into place that we are going to trash that score this month. So well done to everybody who handed me up a project, whether you used the Google Docs or you used the link in the email or you added this to the studio yourself. I am working my way through all the projects, so don't be too afraid if I haven't got around to seeing your project yet. I am trying to get through all of them as quickly as I can. But as I said, well done to everybody and keep adding to them, keep on scratching. So let's have a look at today's lesson. So I'm going to begin today's lesson with my creative coding lesson. There is a starting project for you guys as well. So let me just copy that for you. I'll add it into the chat box now so you guys can work with me if you'd like. Just before we begin, actually, we'll do a little poll just to see, because I'd like to get some information out of you guys before we get into our real lesson. I would like to know today if you were using a computer to watch the lesson or if you're using a phone or a tablet. And this is just to let me see if you were able to use Scratch with me as we're doing the lesson live, or if you have to wait until the lesson's over to do it. So okay, it looks like most of the guys have answered. So we have 85% of people are using a computer or a laptop, and 15% of people are using a phone or a tablet. Now maybe it's just because you are using your phone or your tablet that you haven't actually answered the question, but it looks like 80% of people have, and 80% of people are using the laptop. So that's very interesting to know. What we can do now, if you're using your computer, is you can follow along with the lesson and start adding blocks to your own project. I'm going to use my creative coding one. And don't forget, guys, when you're creating your coding project and you want to send it on the link to me, or you want to add it to the Google Docs, don't forget to click that share. Oh no. Let me just see what's happened here. So if I click my share button, we're back in business. Okay, so it looks like we'll all be able to work nice and quickly today. Ziad, as I said, if you have to go for that airplane, you go for that airplane. You leave this lesson and you continue on. The first thing I want to show you just before we just start drawing in Scratch is a question that a lot of you had, and you were all emailing me about a small bug in the Angry Pong project. Sometimes when you guys were making the ball or whatever it was, the project was actually up in the top corner. Maybe the ball was up here at the top. or it just wasn't quite in the center. So a way to fix that, guys, is to click on this button here called Set Costume Center. And when you click it, you can see that the very center is here. In today's project, I want the center to be at this point here where the pen touches the paper. So I'm going to click on it there, and it's going to move it up. Now when I start drawing, it's going to look just like the pen is moving along from the bottom of it. And let me just delete my variables here. We'll come back to them at the end of the lesson. And we can start drawing in Scratch now. So what we need to do is grab when our green flag is clicked, make sure that we can see our pen, which is tiny at the moment. Okay, so I'll set my size as well. Set it to 100%. And now I can use the pen tab to see what we're going to do. So what size will we make the pen, guys? Just type in a random number there between 1 and 6, and we'll set the pen size to that number. So the first one I've seen is 5. Let's do 5. Some people are very quick at typing into the chat box, which is great to see. You're all paying attention, ready with the fingers over the buttons. And now we can continue on to get ready. So like we said, we are breaking down the blocks to set the size, put the pen on the page. Now we're going to think about moving in terms of making the square. And then we're going to make the repeat 4. So if we think about moving, we can say, let's move 100 steps, or maybe we'll even make it a bit bigger for you guys to see on the screen. We'll say move 200 steps. And we can turn 90 degrees as well. Once we have the basics for setting up each line, we could run the project as it is. And maybe we should run it again. And we can see our full square being drawn, even if it's a little out of shape. What we can do, instead of having to click it 4 times, we can use our loops, because computers are very good at repeating tasks. And instead of doing repeat 10, we can do repeat 4 to see what that looks like. Now what I can do is start my pen over here, and it should start there. But before I do that, I need to grab my clear block and say, when the space key is pressed, I can clear the page. And that'll get rid of the drawing that is on the page for everybody there. So now if I run the green flag, again, maybe crush the project there a little bit. So maybe we'll start from up there. Press my spacebar to remove it, and there's our full and finished square there. So now we can see that if we break down the blocks, the computer will be able to understand. And just like we've seen in the lesson just there now, when the square wasn't drawing properly, we call that a bug. And a bug is what happens when something goes wrong. And in order to fix that, we just had to straighten out where we wanted the pen to start drawing. And if we want to fix that forever, we can say, use our go to block and tell the pen to go to the position it's in right now to draw that square. Now, if you're not sure about what the X and the Y coordinates are, you can go into the backdrops, select a new one. If you select other, it'll show you an XY grid. Now this XY grid will try to make things a little bit easier for everybody. So we can see that in the very center of the page, X is equal to 0 and Y is equal to 0. A lot of guys are saying that they know what this is for, so that's going to make today's lesson a little bit easier. And as well, it's in the handouts as well, so if you want to learn how to draw shapes, maybe draw houses or anything like that, you can use the XY grid to help you do that as well. And now we can say, let's start our square up in the top corner here. So where is the pen sitting now? It's at minus 100 and 100. So let's say minus 100 and 100. And if we run it one more time, there we go, it's on the line exactly. So now guys, the next thing I can show you is making patterns as well. Let's have a look at making this pattern. What are we going to need to do? What are the steps that we need to do to be able to draw a graph like this? Well, the first thing is we need to be able to draw a square, just like we did there. We might make the square a little bit smaller. Then we need to be able to draw the line for the hexagon and rotate it as well. And then of course we need to be able to change the color each time we draw the line for the hexagon. So that means we're going to be doing a lot, and then we're going to be repeating it, and then we'll have all the code we need. So while we say, oh, this is the pattern we're going to draw, and don't forget to clear the marks of any pages we've done, and I think I have, so we're okay there. Now we can move on to coding the pattern itself. So we can use the code we already have made. We can use our repeat for, and we'll maybe change it to move 100 steps instead of moving 200 steps. So just change that to 200 or to 100. And we'll use a different turn block as well, just to show you guys that you can use left and right to turn. Next thing we're going to use is the change pen color by 10. So that's going to help us to change the color each time we draw the square. And you guys are saying that I've spelled color wrong. However, I'm from Ireland, which is in the UK, and is how we spell color over here. In America, color is spelled C-O-L-O-R, which is why the blocks are spelled color. But we'll move on from that for the moment, because the next thing we're going to do is start drawing the hexagon. So we'll move 100 steps for the hexagon, and we'll be able to turn 60 degrees to do it. Emma's like, there are two ways of spelling color, which you're absolutely right, Emma. There is. Apologies for that. Wrong screen. So what did we say we needed to do? We needed to change the pen color. And we can change the pen color by 10. Then we're going to move 100 steps. Or maybe we'll change this to 50 steps just to make sure that it fits inside of our hexagon. And we'll turn the other way then. So now if we run it, and we'll just drop our pen down to minus 100, because I just know that's where it needs to start. If we click run, and we run again, oh dear, our go-to block's not going to work for this project. So if we click run, we'll start drawing squares. Even though it's a little bit bent out of shape, it should be doing it for us. So let's just clear that for the moment, put our pen back up to the top, and now we can see our pen isn't facing the right way. So what we'll do is we'll drag a point in the direction of 90 degrees block, tell it when it starts, it'll point in the direction of 90 degrees, and then we can start doing it. Oh, we need to turn more than 15 degrees, we need to turn 60 degrees to get our hexagon to work. So you might be wondering how the color is changing by numbers there. And that's because computers know how to change color by using numbers. So we have, for instance, green could be labeled as number 1, yellow could be number 2, 3 and 4 as we continue on. So that's why when you want to use a number to change the color, you absolutely can. And the very final thing we need to do is add a repeat 6 block to say that we're ready to just start making the pattern itself, and we don't have to keep on clicking every time we want it to work. So we'll just add a repeat 6 to the whole project, and now when we click run, oh, I've used the wrong turn blocks, so let me just fix that for 1 second. And as I said, guys, this is all about fixing bugs. Don't be afraid that if the project doesn't work the first time, you will still be able to get it. And if we run now, oh, well, our boxes have gone on the other side. So guys, if you have to leave the lesson a little bit early, don't worry at all. You can catch up on the lesson in 24 hours time. The lesson will be available on the Shaw Academy website, so feel free to catch up then. Everybody's saying it still looks cool. No problem at all. Okay, so if you guys can figure out how to get the turn blocks to work to make the squares on the inside, maybe you'll be able to remix the project and do it yourselves. So what am I teaching you there, guys? Well, the reason I'm teaching you is loops that are inside loops are actually called nested loops. Mason, if you're looking for me to stop the lesson, I'm afraid I can't. But if you have a question for me, type it away and I'll try to answer it as best I can. Nora's asking, how do we get the pen up? So that's absolutely no problem to do. Just click on the pen tab. You might see it here on your screen. And then you'll see the pen down to put the pen on the page. And if you want to put the pen up, you can click on the pen up block. So how do you get the Scratch to go on the website? Well guys, if you need to go on the website to see it, I have another project here that needs to be shared. Let me see. Am I drawing shapes? No. There is a small button here. It says the project is not shared, so only you can see it. If you click on the share button here, everybody in Scratch will be able to see it. Now, let's just take one or two more questions before we get into our nested loops. So just type them into the chat box now if you have any. Farah, if you want to color the pen, you absolutely can. Go into the costumes and you're in vector mode, so you can use your paint bucket. Choose whichever color you'd like, and you can change the color of the pen to that. Mikhail, if you're looking how to define blocks, we'll get to that just in a few more minutes. I know I'm putting you on the edge of your seat on this one. What bugs and glitches are the same? Or are bugs and glitches the same from Lucas? Bugs and glitches can be the same now. A glitch is something that you can't find. It just does it wrong. And a bug is the same thing in the sense that it definitely does something wrong. You just need to go through the code step by step and find out how to do it. So what do you mean when you say move by 10? Well, what I mean when I say move by 10 is moving 10 steps or moving 50 steps in this example. You cannot change the block color, Monica, because they're all color coded to represent different parts of Scratch. So we have motion, looks, sound, pen, data, and these are all blocks to do with different types of block usage. How do you get the squares to go on the inside from Mason? Well, Mason, if you want to get the squares on the inside, I'll let you guys figure it out, but it involves the two turning blocks to go different directions. So maybe if we try it this way again, and we'll try our turn block here. Clear the page. And run it. Nope, unfortunately, didn't do it either. So what are nested loops? Again, let's go back to our PowerPoint. Nested loops are loops inside loops. So when you need one loop to do something, you can make a square, for instance. Then you need to do that square 6 times. That is a loop inside a loop. And so that's what we call nested loops in programming. So if anyone asks you what is a nested loop, you can already tell them in your head, that's just a loop inside a loop. So how do you make the pen stuff right? Well, Nina, I've just been caught out on today's lesson, so what I will do is at the end of the lesson in the Q&A, I'll fix it for everybody who needs to see it. If you're looking how the data blocks work, Leon, then we'll get to that in a few moments as well. So let's just go over some of the key points. We looked at how to make sprites draw, and that involves just setting up the pen. So we can use a pen up, we can use the clear block, we can set the pen color to whichever color we'd like, we can set the pen size to whatever size we'd like, and then we put the pen down on the page when we're ready to start drawing. Then we had our nested loops, which was just a matter of adding 2 loops to the project. So let me grab my pen here, and I can show you there's our first loop. There's loop number 1. And then inside that loop, almost straight away, is loop number 2. And that's why we call it a nested loop, because it's nestled inside the loop. So guys, I'll take a quick moment to show you guys my drawing shapes project, and maybe it'll inspire you to come up with something to draw yourselves. As we can see, we have my drawing shapes project, which has actually already been added to the studio if you have the studio up on your computer. This was inspired by Papa Wasson, who actually showed me the project in the first place and had a very similar one to what I wanted to draw. So here you can type C to clear the page. You can type commands to find out what shapes we can draw. And the first shape on this level is line. So I can type in line, and my sprite is able to draw a line. If we click on the green button, you can see there's a line break, or maybe a triangle. If you type in triangle, we can get him to draw a triangle as well. If you guys need a link, I'll send it to you now. Let's just take a quick break to check out our polls. So how many times do you think we're going to need to loop to do our triangle? Let's think about it for just a moment. We've got three answers there. We could loop. How many times will we use a repeat block? Will we repeat the loop 4 times? Will we repeat it 6 times? Will we repeat it 3 times? Well, it looks like absolutely everybody knows what the answer is, but we'll just give them a few more minutes to finalize their answer or submit it. A couple of questions coming in. Where do you get the pencil from? How do you draw in pixels? And can any sprite draw? Well, any sprite can draw, absolutely. Once you use the pen blocks to start drawing, you can. And let me just close that poll for everybody now. I think most people have voted. Is there a way to upload the coordinates as a text file from Aether? There's not actually Aether because it's quite basic in Scratch. If you want to see, let me see where I got the pencil from. It's the sprites. You go into New Sprite. You can go to Things. And if you scroll down to Pencil, you'll see it there in the bottom right corner, which has 2 costumes. So Lucas, if you want to draw in pixels, now that's a little bit different. What you need to do there is simply dot every single pixel in between. So what you need to do is set your pen size to 1, and then when you're moving, instead of moving 50 steps, you'd have to move 1 step and then change it every time somebody else wants to draw again. It does indeed, every sprite uses the pen block tool to draw. And so you can have a look at the project yourselves in your own time if you want to have a look at making something to it, or if you want to have a look at creating your own shapes. There's a lot of code in that project to help you guys make it. How many steps can make a square from Mohammed? Mohammed, depends on how big you want your square to do it. So in this case, I'm using 50 steps. At the start of the lesson, I used 200 steps. But it doesn't matter as long as you turn 90 degrees at the end and then you repeat those steps 4 times. Why don't you use a repeat 10 from Simon? Well, you can use a repeat 10, absolutely, but you only need to use a repeat 4. Zayed, you're asking how to make a circle, and that's an interesting one. So maybe we'll take a few seconds just to show you how to draw a circle. It is the exact same idea as the code we just used, except we can do it a little bit faster, I think. We can use a repeat 36, and we can say move 10 steps, turn 10 degrees, maybe we'll change it to 20 steps, see if that works, and there you go, we've just drawn a circle. So if you're wondering how to draw complex shapes, that's all about adding patterns. So if you want to create two shapes together, you can. Just remember to use nested loops because that'll generally help you out. Or you can turn 360 degrees and move turn 1 degree each time. That's absolutely true. You can do that as well. But guys, this is kind of bringing in to the next part of the lesson, which is our pattern generator. So that's the next thing we need to look at. And before we start looking at the pattern generator, we need to know a little bit more about variables. So a variable is a piece of information with a label. For instance, let's have a look at this shoebox. You can put stuff into the shoebox like your favorite shoes, or you can stop using it as a shoebox and use it to put some of your favorite toys into as well. Either way, what way variables work is that we can call the box stuff. So the same box is called stuff, and it doesn't matter what we put into it, it's always going to be called stuff. So that's to say that the contents of our box can change, but the name doesn't. And in a computer, that means that we can say, where is stuff? And the computer will, or what is in stuff? And the computer can tell us that there's either shoes in there or that there's toys in there. But the point of it is that it makes it so much easier to work with variables when you're able to remember the name of the variable. And in today's project, we're going to be using 2 variables. We're going to be using the answer block, and we're going to create a new variable called line length. And they're going to be used for the pattern generator. So let's start off the project by creating our pattern generator. And what I'll do is I'll change the backdrop, guys. I'm just going to change it to a new one. And maybe I'll color it gray just so you guys can see it a little bit easier. I'll do my space cleared, and I'm going to throw this block of code out. If you guys are following along with the lesson, just create a new program and you'll be able to follow along again. So what is the first thing we're going to do? Well, we're going to use the data tab to make a variable. So if you guys were looking at how to do that, you just click on make a variable, add the variable's name, and we'll call this one line length. And we're going to use it for this sprite only, so we'll click on that as well. Now that we have our variable pencil line length, we can hide it from the screen because we don't need to see it. And we have a copy of it here on the script arena. So let's have a look at some of the questions again there. If you want to draw shapes for the homework, you absolutely can, Emma. Theo, welcome to the lesson. And do broken computers go in a shoebox? Well, David, it depends on where you can put them. If you can put them into a shoebox, absolutely. Nora, if you're asking how to make the coordinates in Scratch are already there. It's just a matter of using them. So let's have a look. If you want to use coordinates, go into the Motion tab. You can change X or you can change Y. Or if you want to tell the sprite to go to a place, you can say go to X and Y, and that'll tell it to go to the position that it's standing at right now. But for the moment, guys, we're just running short on time. So I'm going to continue on and get the pattern generator done for everybody else. So the first thing is to ask the player for a number. We can set the pen size to whatever we'd like. We'll ask them to pick a number, and we'll ask them to pick a really big number maybe. Then we can set the pen color to the answer, because the answer will be a number. And I'm just going to check, guys, you can all hear me. Unfortunately, it looks like it's working okay. Just we'll do a quick sound check for everybody there. 1 if you can hear me, and 0 if you cannot hear me. Okay, so it looks like everyone can still hear me. That's absolutely fine. So let's move on and get started on our pattern generator. First thing we need to do is click, when our green flag is clicked, we'll get our pen and we'll say what size we want to change our pen to this time, guys. Type it into the chat box there if you want to change it to a bigger number than 2. Everybody is saying I've seen 3 first this time, so I'm going to go with 3. And let's go with the question. So we can drag our ask what's your name question, change the question to say pick a number. And then we can take the answer variable in as well. So now what we realize we can do is we can use this answer variable to fill in the little text box that are here on the blocks. For instance, let's change the pen color. Instead of set the pen color. Instead of setting it to 0, we can duplicate our answer and pop it in there, and the block stretches to fit it inside. Now we can set our line length. And we'll set it to 1 to begin with, because what we want to do is start in the very middle of the project and grow out as big and as fast as we can. So we'll start the line length at 1, and we'll get it to 2, we'll get it to 3, we'll get it to 10, we'll get it to 11, we'll get it to all the way to a couple of thousand. And now we can look at the turn block as well. So if you want to pick a number, you might want to see a personalized spiral, something that only you did by entering in a number. So if we add our answer variable into the turn degrees block, then we'll be able to see what our own unique pattern is by simply adding our answer variable in. So I'll get my turn 15 degrees and I'll add the answer variable in there. And maybe we'll just leave it to one side for the moment because it doesn't actually go at the bottom of the project there. The next thing we do is get our change line length, and we'll change it by 10, so it'll increase by 10 each time. But then we'll use our move 10 steps block to put in an operator that says let's divide line length by 10 so that it starts off as 1, then goes to 2, 3, 4, all the way up to a couple of thousand at a time. To do that, we'll move our 10 steps in. In fact, I'll move it up here. We'll grab our operator that says divided by. You can add in 10 and then just add in the line length as well there. And of course, we need to change our line length as well, so we'll grab a change line length block and change it by 10. So now the project won't break when we go to start making the moves. So the last thing we need to do for our pattern generator is stop generating the pattern when we get to the edge of the screen. So when we get to the edge of the stage, we'll need to stop. That means we can use a loop to say, when we're touching the edge, we don't want to keep changing the line length, keep moving, keep turning, and maybe changing the pen color as well. So what do I mean by answer, Kalichi? I mean the answer variable that we're going to be using. So this one here, this is our answer variable, and we're going to pop it in instead of saying 15 or 60 or 230 to give a more unique project, something that we can show our friends and say, look, this project is one that you can design the spiral pattern yourself. So we'll add the repeat until then. I grab my touching block, and now we can say once we're touching the edge we can stop moving, but before we do that we'll change the pen color by even just 1 will be enough, because it's going to be repeating this so many times. And we'll just remember to put our pen down at the top and our pen up at the bottom. So now when we put it all together, if I just started, say, in the middle, I can say pick a number, and I'll say 10, maybe 111, 000, 1. And we can start to see the pen is working overtime. It's going so fast. It's going so fast that it almost looks like there's 3 on the page. And it gets all the way to the edge. So once the sprite touches the edge of the screen, the pattern finishes. And I hope everybody can see that because we're using an operator to make the line length get divided by 10, we can see that the line length actually gets longer each time it turns. So each time we do the repeat, the line length increases and it gets longer. So if we want to edit the code to play it again, make it generate a new pattern, we need to reset the generator. So what we need to do is make sure that the pen is pointing in the direction of 90 degrees. We tell it to go to the middle and say go to X and Y 0. So let's look at adding it in there. We'll just tell point in the direction of 90 degrees, and we'll say go to 0, 0. And we can pop that in just above the question, so we want it to start there. Then maybe you'd like to say press space to play the game again, or to play the generator one more time. And we can say, okay, we can wait until the key space is pressed, and that'll make the project stop. It won't do anything else until the key space is pressed. And then lastly, what we'll need to do is clear the previous pattern. So you can use when the C button is pressed, you can click it to clear the screen, or you can say set the size of the, clear the block at the end there, just down here. What we're also going to do is we're going to make that sprite a lot smaller. If we make it a lot smaller, the pattern itself will be a lot bigger. And then we can hide the pen so that it doesn't look like there's 3 of them on the page. So now we can say set the size to 0.01, hide the pen, and of course clear the page. And we'll do all of that before we pick a new number. And if you want to keep playing this over and over and over again, you can add a forever loop to do so. And what we can do is, because we don't need to set the pen size over and over again, you can add it in just after the pen size. Now there is a lot of code there, but let's see if it works. If I click the space bar to start, it clears the old picture, which is everything I needed it to do. Let's get a number from you guys. I've got 566778888. And there's a really cool looking pattern coming in now. So some numbers work really well, guys, and other numbers don't. If I press the space bar, the project still works. So if I try 99, there's another cool pattern coming in now. But if I try numbers like, say, 10, Let's have a look at what it looks like. Not quite as fancy. So it's a matter of testing out all the different numbers that you have and seeing what they come up with. But it's a little bit hard to see all the code on the screen. You might be asking yourself, what does pen down do? What does pen up do? So let's have a look at making a block. So we can actually make our own blocks in Scratch. If you go to the More Blocks section and just click on More Blocks, then you'll see a button for making a block. And what that means is that we can create a block called Draw Pattern. Then we need to define what that block does. So what will that block do for us? Well, let's make it draw the pattern itself so we can have them side by side. If we click on our More Blocks, Make a Block, we can call it whatever we like. So we can call it Draw Pattern Spiral. Just so that you guys can see. It doesn't matter what the block is called. We'll get our giant define Draw Pattern Spiral and we can add it into the top there. And now we need to use that block. So we can drag the small version of it into the bottom of the project here and we can get it working this way. So now if we hit the run, press the spacebar to begin the project and we can type in whatever number. So let's see, 99032. That's quite a nice spiral pattern there. Alrighty guys, so let's have a look at what you guys are going to do. First of all, I'd like to see everybody remixing the Draw Shapes project. So I'd like to see everybody's favorite shape, whether it's a square or a triangle or maybe an octagon. See what you guys can come up with. Then edit your pattern generator as well. So learn how to make your pattern generator. Maybe add a variable for the pen size. To change it, you can right click on the variable on the screen. So if you right click here, you can say change the slider for a minimum of 0 and a maximum of 10 and hit OK.